Hey guys, welcome to the Homegrown Hopes podcast. I'm your host, 𝐂𝐚𝐢𝐧𝐝, and I am so glad that you're here today. If this is your first time listening to the show, welcome. So glad you found us. Found the show. I'm not plural. Um, sorry, this is just a glimpse of what you have to look forward to. Anyway, glad you found the show. If you have not already, go check out some of the older episodes. This is Season 2, Episode 3. And before I go any further, I'm going to take off my bracelets because I can already hear them jangling. And I will forget when I'm editing this, I'm going to say, now they're going to drive me crazy sitting there in the background. Anyway, the bracelets are gone. No more jangling. Anyway, this is Season 2, Episode 3 of the Homegrown Hopes podcast. And in Episode 1 of this season, it was really fun. I interviewed Jesse and Patrick of RANNSAK, which is the coolest company. You'll hear their commercial later in this episode because they are actually my sponsors of this season. But even if they weren't the sponsors of this season of the podcast, it is just the coolest business idea. It came about on a family bucket list trip, and it has evolved and become the only of its kind peer-to-peer rental company. So if you have some bucket list things that you want to do this fall, you definitely want to check out RANNSAK. Their information will be linked in the show notes because a lot of times fun fall bucket list excursions, they require gear. And you don't necessarily want to buy gear for a one-day or a one-time thing. So definitely you want to check out RANNSAK, and you'll hear more about them later. And then in Episode 2 of this season, I interviewed my friend Christy Richmond. She is a registered nurse, and she specializes in functional wellness, functional medicine. And oh my gosh, that episode was so good. I learned so much. And I already kind of felt like I had a little bit of a grasp on the natural medicine world. I'm not completely ignorant of it, but I learned so much. We dove into gut health. We talked about what a meeting with her looks like. She does a lot of virtual visits, and it's allowed her to stay home, but we talked about what exactly is entailed in a meeting with her, how she really takes her time walking through your health, where you're at and what your goals are. And she is just one of the kindest, most genuine, truly caring people that I know in my life. And I cannot think of a better person that I would want talking to me about my health and wellness. But on top of that, she is ridiculously knowledgeable. She is that friend that I will text with the random things that are ailing me. And she is really science-minded, and she's great at teaching, great at explaining things. So it's a really fun episode. So that was Episode 2 of this season. And then back in Episode 1, if you haven't listened, please go back and check those out. The very first episode just shares about how I even came up with the name Homegrown Hopes, because Homegrown Hopes is a podcast. It's also a blog, a YouTube channel. It has kind of evolved over the years. And so it kind of gives you a little bit of insight into where that name actually comes from, and my vision for this space.
If you felt the pull to slow down, to create and cultivate a more homegrown life that's simple and fulfilling, and to truly enjoy the magic of ordinary days, then friend, you found your place. I'm Caitlin. I'm a barefoot, Blue Ridge, homegrown mama, and this is the Homegrown Hopes podcast. We'll chat about everything from gardening and scratch cooking to homeschooling and motherhood. With some sarcasm sprinkled in, of course, because I am my daddy's daughter, and Lord knows I'm fluent in that. Just know that whatever it is we're discussing, I am by no means an expert, and I'll never claim to be. I'm just sharing my experiences, the good and the bad, and making the most of the little moments in between. I'm so excited you're here, and so humbled that you've chosen to follow along and hopefully join me in cultivating our homegrown hopes.
And I also had interviews about off-grid living. My friend Mandy and I hosted for the very first time this past spring a Homesteaders Conference, the Holistic Homestead Conference, which was a major undertaking. And a lot of learning on our part, and we made some of the most amazing connections. And those connections are actually going to come up later in this season. I'm very excited about. But there is an episode of me interviewing Mandy and us just talking about how we're trying to build community through the Homestead conference. And then there's actually a separate episode where she and I sat down because Mandy's day job is that her family does own the farm where we did the Homestead conference, but she also is a nutritionist. She does functional nutrition. And so she is just a wealth of knowledge on how food affects the body. And so we had an entire episode about that and so much more. So go back and check out season 1, check out the first couple episodes of this season. And then today we are going to be talking about transitioning into fall, both in the home, so like the homemaking, cozy side of things, and then also on the homestead. And that's going to include both animals and the garden. So we are going to jump into that.
This season of the Homegrown Hopes podcast is brought to you by RANNSAK. That's RANNSAK, RANNSAK. And this company, it's really unique. It is a family-owned and veteran-owned company. It was started by my sister-in-law and her husband, and I absolutely love the idea behind this. So this is the first of its kind. It is a peer-to-peer rental marketplace. And basically what that means is you can rent out the items that you have laying around your house collecting dust. I mean, think about all of the stuff that is in your garage or in your basement. I know I personally, since we are in the process of moving into our forever home and we've been living small for 2 years, it's unbelievable how much stuff we have that we very rarely use. We don't want to get rid of it because we need it once or twice a year. The rest of the year it's collecting dust. And what RANNSAK does is it gives you the opportunity to make money off of the items that you have sitting around. And on the flip side of that, if you're someone who needs an item just for the weekend or for a special project, you can rent that item from your local peers and not have to purchase it and then leave it sitting around your basement to collect dust. So some of the items that are available to rent on their website: kayaks, paddle boards, tools, camping supplies, hiking supplies. I live in an area that has a ton of natural resources and mountain biking trails and hiking trails and lakes and rivers and all of the things. And it's really nice to have the opportunity to rent the equipment for a new hobby and see if it's actually something that you're interested in and want to invest in before you buy all of the equipment up front and then decide, you know what, maybe I'm not a mountain biker. So if this is something that sounds interesting to you, please go check out their website because I just think it's the most amazing concept. Just a wonderful way to, 1, earn money, earn extra money on the stuff that you have laying around. 2, save money by not having to purchase tons of equipment that you may not need or just renting it for the times that you do need it. And then also it has the really unique benefit of reducing consumerism. Think about how much stuff we buy that, like I said, we really don't need all the time. How much better would it be to just rent it, use it when you need it, and then send it back? So I just absolutely love this concept. If you are interested in learning more about their business, please be sure to visit their website. Again, that is RANNSAK.com, RANNSAK.
Okay, so we are transitioning into fall here in Western North Carolina, and the leaves are starting to change. The boys in my household can't talk about anything besides deer hunting. There's a little bit of a crisp chill in the air in the mornings. I'm sitting here with a cup of hot tea, and I'm going to take a sip really quickly. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you get to see one of my favorite recent Goodwill finds, this coffee mug. I'm just in love. I have a problem with pottery coffee mugs. I don't think it's a problem because I enjoy it, but I have a lot of them, and this is my favorite one at the moment. So sipping hot tea from a pretty pottery mug, and I'm just really loving that the weather's getting cooler. I love summer, but fall is my season. I live for this time of year, and I am really trying to embrace it, even though we're in a very busy season of life. I know you guys have heard me talk about this on the podcast in previous episodes. We are very much in a transitional season of life. We are at the tail end of building our forever home. We are still not in the house yet. For y'all that have been listening since the very beginning, we're still not in this house. Hopefully very, very soon. But now we're down to the nitty gritty and it'll happen. But it's consuming our lives. And we're also doing travel ball, which we said we weren't going to do, but apparently we're a travel baseball family now and we're loving it. And just instruments, homeschool, everyone's busy. And we just feel like we are especially busy in this season. So as we're transitioning into my favorite season of the year, I'm really trying to make myself slow down and just find little snippets of peace and enjoying it. And right now, chatting with y'all with my hot tea in my new favorite mug is me enjoying it. So one of the ways that I love to enjoy fall, and it's going to look a little bit different for me this year because we're still not in the house, as I mentioned, but I really delight in homemaking. I love making our home feel like a cozy space. I like, throwing out cozy blankets so everyone can pile up on the couch and having we don't have a real wood burning fire, but we do have an electric fireplace, and it kind of gives the same ambiance. And if you don't have an electric fireplace, you can look up crackling fires on YouTube, and it is just so romantic. And so that helps to make a cozy feeling. Throw blankets, have something good smelling. Y'all probably know I'm an essential oil girl. I do like my fall scents, all the cloves, cinnamon. Oh, I live for that. Nutmeg. So I actually started those in like August. Our house has been smelling a little spicy and I love it. And I love decorating the porch and just going all out. Pumpkins, and me and the kids were talking about this the other day because we loved decorating the porch at our old house. And I think my favorite porch we ever did, if you follow along on Instagram at Homegrown Hopes, I'm going to reshare that reel because it was just the funnest, cheapest fall Halloween decor porch. I got all kinds of stuff at the dollar store, spent like $10 whole, and it was the funnest porch. But anyway, I really embrace the fall season. And one of the things that I think I really appreciate the summer garden and the fresh food that it gives, but I also look forward to that, hearty, warm fall food. And I like to be able to have something on the stove just simmering all day. It doesn't really matter so much that it heats the house up because the house probably needs to be heated up. It's a little crispy. One of my favorite things is to roast a whole chicken and have a really good, easy, like foolproof, I don't even look at a recipe anymore, recipe for a whole roasted chicken. And I can remember when I learned to do this, I just thought that I had officially arrived. I thought, okay, this is it. You're an adult. You don't have to worry about, 401ks and taxes. You can roast a whole chicken. This is what makes you a grown up. So I will link that in the show notes also because it is a great fall recipe. I do it in the Dutch oven. You can do it just in a pot on your stove, but it's so easy. And after, we eat the roast chicken, then I use the bones and the leftovers for broth. And then we'll have soup and, whatever's left of that chicken that I've pulled, I'll put in a chicken soup and add whatever vegetables we have left. And it's just a meal that builds on itself. And I love that. I really like cozy food. I haven't really baked all summer. I was just talking to some friends about this the other day. I had a market this last weekend, and I was eating like some sort of granola bar of some sort, like a chewy bar or something. And one of my friends said, "What are you eating? You made that, didn't you? You make me look bad. You made that." I said, "I don't like you may look bad. I bought this at the Walmart grocery store. This is a bobo." Which are delicious, by the way, if you haven't tried them. But all of that to say, I told her, I was like, I'm not in that season of life right now. I have not baked. My poor sourdough starter is in the back of my fridge with some hooch on top of it. She's not looking good. She is looking sad and scary back there. But we're getting into the cooler weather. I'm going to bake some sourdough and have some crusty bread with a good pot of soup. And I'm just so excited. Okay, so fall meals. Another thing that we're really into in the fall is hunting. I mentioned that. If you're not into hunting, just don't worry about it. Don't skip ahead too far. I'm not going to go into any details, but our family really relies on venison. My husband is a big hunter. He, turkey, deer, all the things, and my son is maybe even worse. So bless you to his wife. I'm praying for you already, honey. But we're a big hunting family, and so they're, excited about it. But we use every bit of that meat. And some of my most popular blog post recipes are venison recipes, because I think it's one of those things that people just don't know a whole lot about. And I had to learn. I made some really not delicious venison meals when I first started. So if you are a hunter, or you're married to a hunter, or know a hunter, whatever, if you plan on eating deer meat, I'm going to link some recipes in the show notes, because I just never realized how versatile that meat was. It's very lean, very healthy. And because it's so lean, you kind of have to know how to cook it. And so I have perfected some good recipes, and we use every bit of it. So when I first began figuring out how to cook this, I feel like I wasted a lot. And I have learned over the years to really get the most out of the animal, because, we love animals. We do love animals, and we just believe in respecting every part of it. So I will link some venison recipes too. There's some really good ones. Okay, so we talked about cozy food, baking. I've got a couple sourdough recipes I'll link. And then making the house smell good. Obviously, all that stuff that you're cooking is going to make the house smell really good. But also, I love my fall diffuser scents, and I have a few favorites, and I put them all together in a blog post last year. And they have cool names, which for whatever reason, I appreciate that. I gave them cool names, I think. So I will link that also. You're going to have all kinds of links to check out, but anything spicy, warm, cinnamon, even wild orange. And I love tree oil. So like Douglas fir, cedarwood, all those scents I love anyway. So this is just the time of year that I can diffuse them, and they actually fit into the season. And I love when the house smells cozy and spicy and woodsy. And I'm just so excited. I'm really excited. Like, we're living in a pretty tiny space now, but it is cozy. It has to be cozy because it's tiny. But I'm just so excited to decorate the house for fall. Hopefully we'll be in there. And okay, you're just listening to me daydream right now. Sorry, that's what we're doing here. Okay, so that was kind of the homemaking side. And one other thing that I want to mention, because this is coming up for me as we move, decluttering is something that I do every season. And I kind of talked about this early on in season 1. I can't remember the exact episode, but you can read the titles and know which one. It was about proactive planning, and it was kind of about planning your life in a way that fits the season that you're in, and also planning weekly and monthly. And something that I do is every season, every transition, I declutter a little bit. My children are always outgrowing clothes and shoes, and we are constantly reworking our space to be more efficient. And so this is one of those seasons that I feel like really requires a pretty good declutter, because you're going to have so much more space taken up with gear, with bibs and heavy winter coats and snow boots and toboggans and gloves and all those things. And they can get really out of hand if you don't have space for them ahead of time. So this is the time of year that I'm decluttering closets, going through, mud rooms if you have them, laundry areas, and just trying to, that's not going to sound good. Sorry. Drop my phone. Just trying to really make space for all of the madness and big clunky gear that's coming in the cooler weather. So that's most of the inside stuff that I prep in the home. Now we're going to go outside. So let's talk first about animals, how we're prepping animals on the homestead, after I take another sip of tea. Okay, so currently we have just a few chickens. We're going to restock in the spring, but we have had issues with predators. We had a dog show up that was so sweet, but she really had a taste for chicken. We rehomed her. We've just kind of had an issue this year. So we're down to just a few hens. We're going to overwinter them. They have plenty of space in their coop. But one thing that we want to be sure of is that they're going to be warm. So as we head into the cooler months, we do something called the deep litter method, deep mulch method. And basically, whenever their coop, because it's an open area, it's not super enclosed, so they can go in and out when they want, but it's covered. And so we do the deep litter, and whenever their coop area gets soiled and I add new shavings or new straw, whatever I'm adding, I just pile it right on top. I don't even clean it out. And that sounds gross, but it's really not, because as you cover up the soiled stuff, obviously the chickens are going to kind of scratch through and eat whatever they can out of it. But also that stuff on the bottom is going to compost and break down. And as it does, it heats up. So it's actually a really good way in the winter months to generate some heat in the coop. So we do use that method in our chicken coop. We have horses. In the winter, they're going to have depending on the weather, like we're in Western North Carolina, and we'll have some really, really cold days. But for the most part, it's not like Alaska. So in the daytime, it'll get warm. They'll probably have on just a light sheet or just their winter coat. I do let all the horses grow a full winter coat. We're not showing over here. They're not having to stay slick and spiffy. But when it does get cool, especially at nighttime, we put on winter blankets. We have a couple of old pawpaw horses. They're elderly now, and they just don't regulate their heat as well. So we do put winter blankets on them. We up their feed in the winter because they do burn more calories trying to stay warm. And then we also supplement with hay. We have a good quality hay source here. So we do feed hay in the winter. As far as water goes, that is my least favorite. I was just talking about this with my husband. Dragging a water hose is my least favorite thing of anything you do on a farm. To fill up water tubs and drag a hose around. I was dragging it to water our new grass that we planted. And I don't know what it is, but I hate with every fiber of my being a water hose and dragging it around and getting muddy, and I don't enjoy it. So in the winter months, we do have for our horses and our goats. Our goat is in that pasture also. The bigger horses have automatic water tanks, which we've had for years and years, and they are fabulous. We've never had a problem with them freezing. We get below freezing temperatures. We've never had an issue with that. Now, we don't stay below freezing. It usually warms up during the day, or if it does stay below freezing during the day, it's not for very long. So we have automatic waters for the horses. The miniature horses don't really use those. They can, but I just worry that they're not going to use them and get dehydrated. So they do have just a regular water tub in their pasture. And it's kind of one of those things that we just go out there and bust the water in the morning so that and that's one of our winter chores where things pick up. But one thing I've done in the past that was kind of helpful is I got a big bouncy ball from, I think, Walmart, like a kid's bouncy ball, and put it in the tank, and it would kind of move around and at least keep the ice from freezing so thickly, because the wind would just kind of move it around on the surface and it would not freeze into, 4 inches thick. It would be a little just thin layer of ice on the top, and that was easier to deal with. And then the chickens, we do not have a heated water bucket for the chickens, but one of these days, when I finally arrive in life, I will have heated waters for the chickens. But for right now, we're just filling it up in the freezing weather. We do try to work on, preparing shelters if there are any leaks or cracks or anything like that. We try to get that taken care of before the cold weather. I'm trying to look at notes so I don't forget anything. Okay, let's move on to gardening. I like the gardening. Let's see, firewood, which we don't burn firewood. We don't, like I said, we don't have a wood burning stove. I wish we did. I think that's the coolest thing ever. If you have a wood burning fireplace, I'm jealous. So it would be another thing that I had kind of put in my notes for, if you are in that sort of situation. Obviously, you probably want to get that prepped before winter comes. Let's talk about the garden. And let me preface this with, do as I say, not as I do, because if my friends know me right now, they've seen my garden. A couple of them came in a couple weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, how about that? How about I have a home and garden podcast, and that's what it looks like. That's the truth behind the scenes. So my garden, I did a YouTube video on this last spring, I believe. We're just in a transitional period. We are not in our forever home right now. So I brought my little raised beds with me from our house and have just a small raised bed garden area. And I have tried because I love gardening. But this summer has kicked my tail. And so there is stuff growing down there, but there's no telling what it is at this point. I know my dad was mowing around it the other day and he said, there's some really big squash down there. Like, I think you've forgotten it. It's really, really big squash. And I said, that's actually loofah that I did forget about. Thank you for reminding me. I did see it flowering, but I just haven't even been back down there to check on it. And we have some rain coming in, so I probably need to go see where that's at if I need to pick it. We did have some tomatoes and let's see, what else do we grow? We did radishes and beets just because those are like the easiest things. Stick them in the ground. I had onions this year, but right now it looks like full-on Jumanji jungle. I would be embarrassed if you saw it. So all of this whole section is, I'm not doing this year. That garden, I'm probably just going to let it go with God and really gung-ho plan for a fun garden in the spring, because Lord willing, we better be in this house by planting time in the spring. So typically what I do as I'm transitioning into fall is I clear out the summer crops, which I really need to do. I saw a tomato plant just hanging out down there it's bad. So I clear out the summer crops. And if you compost, definitely put your summer crops in your compost bin, but be mindful of if you had any sort of disease issues with plants. I don't compost those. I don't want that, going back into my garden. But compost does break down pretty quickly, so you'll be able to use it. If you compost now, you'll be able to use it by your spring garden. You may want to think about a cover crop, depending on your area, if you need to, amend your nitrogen or something like that. And if you're not sure, a really good way is to do a soil test, take it to your local extension office, and they can give you a whole lot more insight on what your particular soil might need. Now, one thing that I always do is I don't always plant a cover crop, but what I do, mulch my garden pretty deep. We have always, well, not always, but for the last probably 7 years, we've just done raised bed gardens just because of our living situation. We haven't done in-ground beds, but I mulch it to the top. That breaks down all winter, and then you've got really healthy soil in the spring. If you want to do a cover crop, you could do like a clover or a rye. That would enrich the soil. But like I said, you may want to reach out to your extension office and see what's best for your area. However, you don't just have to cover it up and forget about it until spring. Planting season is not over. I think there's a big misconception that, it's just summer for the garden, but now is the time to plant a lot of things. Now is a time for cool weather crops that are really going to thrive in the cooler conditions. So things like leafy greens, kale, spinach, root vegetables like carrots and radishes. You can plant those right now. This is also the time of year to plant one of my very favorite things. Brownie points to whoever guesses this. I love growing garlic. I really love growing like any root vegetable. I like onions, potatoes, carrots. There's just something so satisfying about pulling it up out of the dirt, but I really like growing garlic. It's so easy. We use a ton of it. We eat a ton of it. I cook with it. I make, like fermented garlic. And anyway, it's so easy. It is so easy. I remember the first year I did it, I just thought, well, I'm just going to try it. And I put the bulbs in the ground, covered them with leaves from our yard. And the following summer, I harvested huge garlic cloves. Like, it blew my mind. I was so proud of myself. And ever since, I was only proud because I had no idea what I was doing. So I have gotten better at it throughout the years, because then I got cocky and I thought, well, I'll plant even more closer together. That was not smart. Root vegetables need space to grow in the ground. So don't do that. But I actually have an entire blog post on how to plant, harvest, dry garlic, the different kinds of garlic, because there is soft neck garlic and hard neck garlic. I have a post on in the springtime. Some types of garlic will send up a scape, and you can eat those. It's SCAPE, not �𝐴SCAPE. And so I love planting garlic, and now is the time of year to do it. So if you're listening to this, this is your sign that you should plant garlic, even if it's just a little bit in a little pot outside your back door. It's just so easy to grow. So anyway, now is definitely the time of year that you can plant things still, cool weather crops. And I love, like I said, we like the hearty meals, and you kind of lose that fresh summer veggie. You've always got a cucumber and a tomato on the plate in the summertime. Here in the South, we do anyway. Like, you don't have a meal between June and September that you don't have like a cucumber or a squash or a tomato on your plate. So you kind of miss out on those fresh veggies when you move into the colder months, but you don't have to. You can do root veggies. You can do leafy greens. I love chopping some kale and some spinach up and adding it into my soups. So the growing season is not over. All right. I'm looking over my notes. Don't think I've forgotten anything. I'm going to wrap it up because I'm losing daylight, and I can see that the quality of this video is getting worse and worse. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can slowly see the black closing in on me. Okay. So if you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much to me if you would subscribe to this channel. Every time I see those numbers go up, it just makes me a little bit giddy inside. I talked about this in episode 1 of this season when I was interviewing Jesse and Patrick. And she was saying, every single customer service call comes through them. They are the only employees, and every call comes through them, every listing. And they're so excited to see where new customers pop up all over the country. And I feel the same way. When I see new listeners pop up in different areas, it just makes me totally giddy. So if you're enjoying listening to this podcast, please be sure to subscribe, share it with a friend. That would be really helpful. And then go back and listen to some past episodes if you haven't listened already. And also be sure to check us out on YouTube. If video is your thing, you can watch all of the podcast episodes on YouTube. And you can also check out homegrownhopes.com for all of the recipes that I have mentioned, and I'll also list them in the show notes. Anyway, be back next Tuesday, and I hope y'all have a wonderful week. I would love to hear from you. If you follow along on Instagram, I'm going to put up a little fall reel, and maybe you can comment on how you are making your home cozy as you transition into fall. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.